There we go. Hello, everyone. My name is Adrineh Betcheri. I'm with Exchange Resources. Thank you for having us here today. I'm here with my team, Marcus Jacques, who is also another VP that covers half of the territory, and I cover the other half of the territory. I'm on the Northwest LA County part, along with the San Fernando Valley and the Ventura counties, and Marcus will introduce himself as well. I also have with us here today Michael Spring, is the Vice President of Exchange Resources, and also a DST company that we work with very closely, JRW Investments. Ryan Thomas and Chris Rogers are here. The bulk of the presentation today, I know we're amongst very seasoned and experienced commercial agents today. And the bulk of the presentation for today is going to be on the DSTs and the 721 UPREIT strategy. But I wanted to take the time to introduce myself to let you know that I'm here for any of your 1031 exchange needs. I am also fluent in Farsi and Armenian, so I will be more than happy to get on a call with any of your clients that would like to discuss the 1031 exchange process with me. Nice. And with that, I would like to also introduce Marcus and have him talk a little bit about himself. And thank you for having us here today.
I won the bet with my people because I said she's Armenian Iranian. What did I say?
Yeah.
By the way, Adrineh John, I need to speak with you because I want to go to Armenia. I actually made a reservation. So
absolutely.
Number, and you're the one.
Yes, I'll put my information in the chat too.
That is the funniest thing. And I made a bet and these guys lost. So, you know, anyway, he's laughing. Okay, I apologize. let Marcus.
I'm glad you won the bet.
I'm glad you won. Maybe you'll share some mimosas with us as well. Good afternoon, everybody.
This is the kind of people want to hang out with, Kim. There you go. This is the kind of people. They're bringing 4 or 5 bottles on Thursday. Make sure they get in. Okay, go ahead, Marcus.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marcus Jacques with Exchange Resources. I'm a proud member of this great organization. I come with a 19-year title background. And prior to that, I was a paralegal for an estate attorney. And I guess commercial has always been a part of my family. I have family members that are doctors and lawyers, and they've always owned their property. So I've known about commercial. And then I grew up in Irvine, and I had many friends from college and high school that worked for the Irvine company, if we want to talk commercial. I am fluent in Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, French, and English. I minored in foreign languages and Romance languages, so I'm a language buff too.
No Farsi, no Farsi, Marcus.
I haven't met the right person. I haven't met the right person. I wish I could because I love the food.
Where's Adrineh with all this? She's not teaching you Farsi. Okay, go ahead.
So I'm also excited to be talking to the KW folks who are really devoted to commercial, because it seems so daunting for the realtors. Realtors hone their skills on principles of home ownership, and it's nice to know that there are other people that see the bigger picture and that are able to wear the hat. And I know for a fact, and the time that I've been in this business and working primarily in commercial title, real estate, in commercial title, that you garnish no more loyal a client than the client that you can help to further capital gains. So I'm excited to partner with you and to be a valuable resource to you, so that you can bring value to your clients. And I'm here I'm in the South Bay, everything below the 10, up to Long Beach, everything east of the 605, Inland Empire, Coachella Valley, and beyond. Here for you to any questions that you might have, and any tax deferral questions in particular that you might need answered. Thank you for this opportunity.
You guys do also reverse exchanges too, right?
We do.
Yes, we do.
And build to suit. to an art form.
So, first of all, nice meeting both of you. A couple of questions. What do you charge for just a basic 1031 exchange when somebody wants to use you as an accommodator? They're going from one property to another.
Well, we charge a flat fee for the regular delayed exchange.
Right.
Well, it's $12.50, and that includes one sale and one purchase. If there are any other properties that are acquired in the exchange, it's $350 for each additional property.
And what do you, that's not the right question, because your reverse exchange gets a different story. It's more complicated. And of course, yes. And of course, you guys are paying interest and whatever the going rate is while the money's there.
We pay interest on those proceeds. The monies of over anything over 2 million, we do pay interest.
I'm sorry, anything what?
Anything over 2 million and
over 2, but under 2 you don't do.
No.
And then I think Michael wanted to say a few words as well.
Yes, over to Michael.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having us. I'm Michael Spring. I'm VP of Operations for Exchange Resources. Today, Adrineh and Marcus had asked that I just talk about why it's so important to choose the correct QI. There's a lot of us out there. There's a few things, though, that I think set us apart, Exchange Resources. Number one, we've been in business since '99, so over 25 years. So we have a very long proven track record of not only successfully doing thousands upon thousands of 1031 exchanges, but we've weathered the storm, the financial storm, so to speak, of 2007-8. Also, when COVID hit, we've remained fully operational, and we're very proud of that track record. Another thing that sets us apart as a QI is we don't segregate our clients' funds. So every single one of our transactions is held in a separate trust account tied to the taxpayer's tax ID number. So all of the money that we hold is not sitting in one giant escrow account. It's all segregated. And we also carry a $10 million bond, an insurance bond, and an errors and omission policy as well to protect our taxpayers. And in 25 years, we've never had to use it, but we're going to continue to pay for it to ensure that folks remain loyal to using us and remain coming back to us for their exchange needs. So again, we're very proud of our record, proud of what sets us apart, and always here to answer any questions that you guys might have regarding the 1031 exchange process.
Sorry, one question. This is David again. Only in California, or just doesn't matter where?
It doesn't matter where. It's a good question. So we're a national QI. In fact, we're probably the largest independent QI, and so we do exchanges all in the United States. But I've got clients overseas as well, and we're a national 1031 exchange company.
I think with that, we're ready to bring our guests on. Chris Rogers and Ryan Thomas from KW Investment to give us some information about DSTs and maybe 721 UPREITs. It's all yours, Chris.
Very good. Thank you for the introduction. It's great to meet you all. Let me get the slides over in the right spot. So by way of introduction, make sure you guys can see the right screen here. Cool. So this is my QR code. You can get in contact with my colleague and I through scanning this. We'll also have it at the very end. My colleague Ryan Thomas and I is joining the call with us. And JRW is a real estate wealth management advisory firm located in Pasadena, California. We work with primarily the retiree and investors who are thinking about transitioning from active management over into passive. We can talk about all the advantages of the 1031 exchange. You all are familiar with that process and the wealth creation opportunity that can come from that. Now, the type of investor whom we are working with is typically going to be thinking about, well, how do where do we go from, I've grown my real estate portfolio. I've done the 1031 exchange. I pulled cash out of my property through refis. Now, how do I think about passing this on to my heirs? Perhaps I don't want to manage anymore. Perhaps the duties of being a landlord are burdensome for this stage of life. So what is the next phase? And I just want to, even just kind of call out at the beginning, Exchange Resources is a phenomenal QI. We work with QIs throughout the country. Like our investor base extends throughout the United States, and Exchange Resources is the #1 QI that we work with. By far and large, they are, I think, the best when it comes to communicating with clients, to processing transactions, to their attention to detail. They're phenomenal. So, and we worked with all the largest QIs just through our years as a wealth management advisory firm. So, thank you again for the opportunity. Now, just at a high level, we're not talking about any securities today. While you do have to be licensed to represent DSTs or even the 721 UPREIT, this is not a specific offering or security that we're going to be discussing today, more just at a high level, how the mechanics work. And I'll say kind of, I think you'll pick up on what we do at a high level, but as a way of brief background, we started as a CPA practice in the late 80s. We're headquartered out of Pasadena, and we had offices in Orange County and LA proper. And really what we're working with, the heart of what we do is to protect and grow our clients' wealth. And the generosity piece is really critical. The generosity piece, whether it's them being generous with their families, their local charities, their trusts, and then transferring that wealth on. But at the heart of how you do that is selecting really sound real estate investments, being able to identify and select and manage real estate investments over the long term to create that wealth. So that is a little bit of background. My role at the company is due diligence director. I help source investments for our clients. We have about 25 employees. And then I'm also registered representative, where working directly with clients on their exchanges, understanding their goals, their objectives, and aligning investments with what they're looking for. My colleague Ryan as well. He came into the firm as an investor, and he can maybe talk a bit more about himself towards the tail end in Q&A. So we'll go through here now, and a couple of things. I think if we come away with 3 things, that will be a win for today. So 1, learn about a 1031 exchange tool that has been used for the last 20 years, helping investors protect and grow and transfer their real estate wealth into and through retirement. So the type of real estate investor whom we are talking about today is going to be the mid 70-year-old looking to get from active to passive management. Oftentimes, this client won't sell their existing property because 1, they have a large built-in capital gain and they don't want to pay taxes. But 2, they are not wanting to buy somebody else's problems. If they were to have a transaction, they're going to have to go into a property that they don't know the problems that already exist with their own property. So that's an unknown for them. So we find that those type of investors don't want to sell their properties. But the pathway is that there is a way to retire out of active management without having to pay capital gains, without having to pay a large sum of money to Uncle Sam if you were to go through that transaction. And I think the feeling that we want to come away with, right, is hopeful for the investor. So maybe the feeling that they feel right now is stuck because of that situation. It's a good problem to have, but they feel stuck. And then for you all, how can you come into the next listing meeting prepared to win, prepared to add a service, add advice, have a tool in your tool belt that can give you an edge over the other broker that is talking about the Delaware Statutory Trust? I think that this is something that is coming up more and more and more. And with the amount of baby boomers that are going to transition they've already retired from their day job, now they're retiring from their active real estate. This is something that I think is if it's not a solution for them, at least it's a tool that you can provide and have expertise in, and being able to point them in the right direction. So at minimum, this will give you an edge in that regard. You also may be wondering how we play in light of an investor's current set of financial professionals. So while we do have a CPA background, we don't replace a CPA. While we do conduct real estate analysis and help on up-leg transactions, we don't replace the existing long-term broker relationship that is working with that client. We also don't replace the attorney or the RIA mutual fund advisor that's working on the equity side of a client's portfolio. We fit inside of the real estate analysis and advisory for that investor looking to transition wealth over long term. So due diligence is critical. It's at the heart of what we do. And I think it'll become clear as we go through this. I won't give many examples right now, but being at the heart of protecting our clients and having investments for them that meet their goals and objectives is selecting quality deals, sourcing and finding and doing the right due diligence on properties. This is a diagram of the 3 pillars of wealth. So your clients, they're going to find themselves somewhere in this phase. For us, we find the clients in the prepare phase. Maximize is like they want to throw as much equity or capital they can at acquiring new properties. They may want to improve their completing the 1031 exchange. You're able to swap properties without paying capital gains, deferring taxes, depreciation, recapture, etc. And you may do refis. You may pull money out of your properties and then put them into other properties to acquire, to grow wealth. The prepare phase is going to be that retiree or pre-retiree thinking about, well, what's next? At a high level, the Delaware Statutory Trust, it qualifies for 1031 exchange. So there's an IRS ruling in 2004 that legitimizes it as a structure to qualify for a like-kind property, meaning that you can sell your existing property, you can do the 1031 exchange, and you can buy the Delaware Statutory Trust and complete your 1031 exchange. Under current U.S. inheritance tax law, the investor gets a step up in basis at the time of the taxpayer's death. So that can be an extremely lucrative tool for beneficiaries. And the trust structure fits exactly into the same way in an estate plan that a sole ownership property would. A couple other things, it's a grantor trust. So you have a trustee and beneficiary relationship. The trustee of the trust is going to make the management decisions of the real estate in the trust. They're going to acquire the real estate, they put it into the trust, and then they bring it out through advisors to represent that to their clients, but they're making management decisions. The beneficiary is going to be the investor. They own the property is deeded to the trust. So the property inside the trust is deeded to the trust. And as a beneficiary, you own a pro rata percentage of the real estate in that trust and the income coming from that trust. You're also getting the same deductions and write-offs. You report income on Schedule E. Any income from the DST is reported on Schedule E, and investors still can depreciate their basis from in their property in the trust. Nextly, as a fractional ownership structure, as an investor, you're buying part of that trust pro rata alongside other beneficiaries, meaning that it's a $100 million trust and you invest $1 million. You own 1% of the property and the income from that property, alongside other investors. There are sponsors of programs, meaning that the sponsor is going to be the manager, they're the trustee, and there are today 60 sponsors. So they are going out and acquiring real estate. They may have their expertise in certain asset classes, but then they'll put them into the trust and then bring them out through advisors. The trust can have one property or it can have many. So you can go, like within your 1031 exchange, you can invest into as many trusts as you want to within that 45-day time period. You can also invest into a single trust that has multiple properties. We've seen trusts with up to 15 properties inside of them, or it could be a large 300-unit apartment complex that you're investing into. So the types of assets can vary. And the other thing is there's pre-identified investment objectives. So the seller, the sponsor, they're coming out with a forecast of 10 years or sometimes 5 years of projected revenue, operating expenses, distributions to investors, and performance. So that's all evaluatable. As an investor, it's not like a mutual fund where you go in, you don't really know what you're buying. As an investor, before you've ever made that decision to buy into a trust, you know the real estate, you know the manager, you know their exit strategy, you know the projections of revenue, of operating expenses, et cetera. So that's all given up front. Now, the right type of investor, who are we talking about? And typically, it's someone looking for tax deferral within the 1031 exchange. They're looking for hands-off income. So again, the 75-year-old investor, especially in LA, we find that you're going to be in a lower cap rate market, and that's okay because you get all the appreciation. A lot of the clients that we are working with want to exit out of California and go to somewhere that may be more landlord friendly or maybe a more yield market. So they may get higher income if you look at where their property is at. So we want to evaluate that. Next is the professional management piece. So trusts are going to be managed by third-party property manager. The beneficiary, as the investor, you're hands off. You don't have any management. You don't have the calls for toilets or tenants or trash, whatever kind of headache that you've had on your active property. That for you, you're hands off. That's being taken care of by a third-party manager. Additionally, from a retirement planning standpoint, working with investors thinking about transitioning the trust interest over to their beneficiaries, that can be fractionalized an infinite number of ways. So we work with investors all the time where, they may have 5 properties, but they have 7 grandchildren and beneficiaries that they're thinking about transferring that wealth to. And to split that up can be a headache for that grandparent or for the taxpayer. And you're able to, you can just assign percentage interest to those beneficiaries over time. The last thing is accredited. So this is not typically an issue for California property owners, especially on the commercial side. But you have to have $1 million net worth or above as an investor, excluding your primary residence. Let me say as well, like what I've outlined so far in terms of the right investor. At JRW, we actually are an exclusive DST provider for the KW Real Estate Financial Planner community. So that's something also that on the residential side, you're not always working with the investor type. Sometimes most of the time you may be working with the residential, just first time home buyer. But this is also something that has been a tool for the KW financial planning community as well. Now, challenges of the DST. So the number one critique or the number one reason why you wouldn't do a DST is because of the lack of control. So for some investors, being hands-on is where they feel comfortable. That's your bread and butter. But you're able, but also that may be an advantage. On the other side of the coin, that may be something that you want as an investor. The other piece is inside the DST represents any real estate risk that you'd be exposed to owning properties directly. So the DST is not immune to real estate risks. It owns real estate at the end of the day. So that's what you want to evaluate. That's what you're buying into within the trust structure. Lastly, other challenges can be costs. So costs are something that we get oftentimes questions on. And where we always bring it back to for DSTs is the price that you're paying for the real estate is considered the all-in price. The all-in price is going to be the price of the raw acquisition cost of the real estate plus any fees associated. And those are all outlined, they're provided, they're all disclosed. But for us, when we're evaluating properties, how we overcome this idea of, well, what am I paying for this real estate? Well, that's really looking at the all-in price. And we will do independent comp studies on properties and markets throughout the United States that compare the price of the real estate that an investor would be buying to where other comps would be at. Lastly, like debt needs within the 1031 exchange, you have to replace equal or greater value on your property. And within the trust structure, you're going to have some of those are going to have debt on them. And that debt is will sometimes not match dollar for dollar. So you may have to blend multiple DSTs together to get the exact debt requirement that you need. Or you may buy more property than above and beyond what your relinquished property was. So those are things that we think about as potential challenges. Now the advantages, I think they're clear. Using 2 DSTs, you could also customize your equity and debt, so you could buy dollar for dollar how much real estate you need. Within the trust structure, you also can blend that with a local acquisition. So oftentimes we'll work with folks who have $100,000 left in their exchange or $200,000 left in their exchange. And that's not enough to buy real property unless they tack on debt, but that is going to be something that they can put towards the trust structure. So their money's still in real estate, but they're not taking on boot. The next thing is the non-recourse debt component of a trust. So the trust is going to have debt that's already inside of it. Probably 50% of the DSTs will have debt on them. And that debt is non-recourse, meaning that as an investor, you're not having to sign on the loan with the lender. You assume whatever debt is in that trust already. So let's say there was a 50% down payment. As an investor, you invest $100,000 at a 50% loan of value. You're actually buying $200,000 of real property, 100,000 equity, 100,000 debt. So that's also something that as an investor, it can be attractive. The other thing I'll mention with that as well is, we'll see cases where an investor will use the DST to replace their loan to value within their 1031 exchange to replace, to get whatever debt they need. They then become a cash buyer in the local market with their local relationship. And that was a similar case with an investor out of San Diego. They used the trust structure to replace their debt with non-recourse debt. They then bought sole ownership properties with their local broker relationship locally. So like it can be used in a number of different ways. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. And we oftentimes see, at some level, there can be an advantage to the investor. Other advantages, you can close escrow in days. So the DST is already formed. The property is already in the trust. So as an investor, you can buy in and get a closing statement within 2 business days once you've identified what property you want to go forward with. So that can also be an advantage. Also within the trust, as it's non-recourse, we'll oftentimes see folks even able to take title in their name. Now you want to make sure that you're compliant with all the rules, but as an investor inside that trust, your liability is whatever investment that you make. So that can be a non-recourse vehicle to you. And then lastly, the 721 exchange. So that's something that's more of a bonus topic, and we can talk a little bit more at towards the tail end. But that can also be something that is utilized. And where we see that come into play is, again, the 75-year-old investor who does not want to do their 1031 exchange. They see the advantages of owning shares in the REIT. Well, they still get tax deferral, but now in the REIT, you can own shares and you get liquidity inside of that trust, or inside of the real estate investment trust. Within the DST, also the illiquidity piece. So I talked about how the investment objectives are predefined, so you know how long you're going to hold that trust for. But also for some folks, 4 or 5 years may be too long. So you want to understand your client's goals and objectives. If they wanted to get their equity out in 2 years, I would say the trust is not something that is going to be suitable for them, as there's not an active secondary market to buy those interests. Now, the different types of commercial real estate asset classes can exist within the trust, whether it's retail, industrial, apartment, office, student housing, et cetera. Oftentimes, we see going from sole ownership property, or going from, that could be a single tenant industrial building, into multiple portfolios of industrial buildings or multiple properties. Within the trust structure, you can have, again, I think I said that there's a 15 property portfolio, where in that you own a FedEx industrial building and Kroger grocery and, a handful of other, 10+ year leased long-term triple net properties inside that portfolio. You could also own a 300-unit apartment complex or multiple 300-unit apartment complexes. So you're able to, within the trust structure, pull your money together alongside other investors to buy real estate at an institutional level. Now, the question is, and this is, I think, the crux of what our clients rely on us for, is the due diligence and re-underwriting of specific programs. The goal that we have is to source the best opportunities in the market at any point in time. And we're going to look at a few things. We're going to look at the price of that real estate. We're going to look at the business plan. Is it achievable? And then can we really sell this property for more than we bought it for? So the due diligence and re-underwriting process, something that your client's going to do on their own property, and even you're going to work with them on. We are doing this at scale for the trust properties in the local market. Again, within the trust, you own real estate, so everything has a price, everything has a business plan that's in place, and our investors rely on us to evaluate whether or not that is achievable, whether or not these are good investments. A couple of these sponsors, I'm sure you've probably heard of them, but the sponsors can exist and they'll have their different strengths, where they will focus on certain asset classes. Some sponsors will have the 721 exchange, where they go directly from the DST into their REIT. So those are things to look out for and things that we evaluate. If you think about the current market today, so we look at every investment we can get our hands on. I think today there's 89 DSTs, and that can be located throughout the United States. We then evaluate the properties locally. We then look at the sponsors. So today there are 50 sponsors that are in the market. So again, some sponsors will have multiple DSTs at any one point in time, but we want to evaluate, where are the best opportunities. Now we think about the 100% of the deals in the market. They go through our initial screening, and we're going to evaluate, what's the price that we're paying for this deal? What are the local comps saying? Where is the price per square foot, the price per unit? How does that compare to what investors are paying at an all-in price? And that's going to filter through probably 50% of the deals that we evaluate. From there, we're going to look at the operating model. And once we get through due diligence analysis, which probably takes 20 to 25 hours, we will go and visit the property. Say if it's multifamily, we'll go and walk the property. We visit local comps. We're doing due diligence on behalf of our investors at scale anywhere in the United States for any of these properties. And then at the very end, the deals that pass our due diligence are typically 5 to 10% of the available inventory, which means we're going to say no to one reason or the other to 90% of the deals that we evaluate. I think last year it was 7% of the deals that we evaluated passed our due diligence. So not all the DSTs I think are built the same, but sponsors as sellers, they want to represent those deals and they want us to represent them to our clients. But we stand in the gap between the sponsor and investors. This is just a screenshot of the overall market. So you'll see here what you have is separated by asset class. You're going to see, industrial buildings. You're going to see when the offering came out and then how long it's been on the market, and then the total size of the equity raise in the market. So this is a report that we will send out on a weekly basis to our industry partners, and it will have all the deals in the market just to remove all ambiguity. Within the trust market, access is never an advantage. So working with all the sponsors in the industry, trying to source the best opportunities. I think some advisory shops will have, a limited perspective and have 1 or 2 different sponsors on their platform. Others will see it as an MLS, and they will offer all 89 to their clients and see what sticks. We find ourselves somewhere in the middle where we want to look at everything, but as you know, not all deals are going to meet the goals and objectives of your client. So you want to make sure that you're vetting and sourcing and doing due diligence on the right properties, and ultimately making investments that are going to make your clients happy. They're going to protect their capital, that are going to achieve the goals that were set out going into those deals. So that's what our clients are and investors are relying on us for. I can talk a little bit more about the 721 exchange. I didn't know if anyone has any questions right now. Maybe we can take a pause and take any questions that folks have.
Chris, I'll chime in real quick. This is Ryan Thomas with JRW. The 3 most common ways that we're interacting with brokers with a DST of where we could potentially help your clients is one, when you encounter a client that's hesitant to sell because they don't want to pay taxes or they just don't know what to go into that could eliminate the management responsibility, right? And so that's where the DST can be maybe an all-in-one solution. The other time, as Chris mentioned earlier, it's when the client has leftover proceeds after you've helped them go into their next commercial property. And maybe that's 50,000 left over, maybe it's several hundred thousand or $1 million left over. We can use the DST to backfill, and we can do that within the exchange window. That's no trouble at all. The last way that we can help your clients is if they have a debt replacement need in particular. So Chris had mentioned access to non-recourse financing. It's not uncommon for us to engage with investors that may not have the ability to obtain financing because their life or financial situation has changed. By default, any investor, as long as they meet the accreditation requirement, they can go into one of these funds and automatically have the IRS treat the debt that's in that fund as debt that the investor has taken on for themselves. And so it's a really unique opportunity there. But the other way that it can help is DSTs have access to institutional financing. So for example, Chris and I just last week helped an investor replace all of their debt into a 17-year Amazon distribution center, 17 years remaining on the lease, full triple net with great rent bumps at a 3.875 interest rate. Something that most of your clients probably wouldn't have access to today. And so where that's advantageous for you is it can make your buyer a really attractive buyer, right? They can go in and buy something all cash and maybe beat out whoever else is going after the same thing. So again, we're happy to help where we can. I do see there's at least one question here that we'll get to, but feel free to use the chat for that or chime in, and Chris and I can talk through those.
I have a question. This is Jason Dufault. The questions that we get on the DST reinvestment opportunities always come down to what we're talking about here, but also risk, right? So in risk inherently, I've come across a particular client of ours here in the office that has been without income for 24 months. Somewhere near $17,000 a month that he's missing out on. And what I'm going to call, I might get the terminology wrong, but in the fine print called the debt trap as it relates to vacancy. And can you guys explain to that? Because I think what happens is that these clients of ours say, well, you know, if I go in here and I don't have control, and if it were to go vacant, so, you know, a percentage thereof of the office building, wherever it may be, you know, I'd still get some income. But in this particular case, because the vacancy and was such a large percentage of this particular asset, the bank's keeping the money until the DST fills that vacancy. And then to speak to, that's question one, if you can explain that to everybody, because I think it's important. And then secondly, you know, there's got to be some sort of huge tax ramification when you get that money back, right? So let's say you're missing out on, you know, let's just use 24 months at $17,000. You know, he's going to get over $400,000 back, let's say, at some point in the same year. That's got a huge tax ramification. And just kind of talk to that, because I think a lot of times these products, they're fantastic, don't get me wrong, and they offer a lot of advantages, but there's also the downside. And I think that needs to be talked about to our clients and explained up front so they understand that there is a risk and how you guys maybe mitigate that with the assets that you guys bring to market and so forth.
Yeah, great questions. And so let me just kind of back up and explain how we work with clients. Okay, if you were to make an introduction, how would we interact with them? Our process is highly educational. And so what we would typically do in a first meeting is really help the client understand the detriments of the DST structure, because there's way too many brokers and advisors out there that sell on the fact that it's passive, efficient for 1031 exchange, but they don't expose everything to the client. We want to give the client every opportunity to say, you know what, this isn't for me. Okay, so we walk the client through that. We also walk them through our analysis process so that they can see firsthand with a live deal. Usually it's Chris or one of his team members that will expose, this is everything that we're looking at inside of a particular opportunity. And that now allows your client to have a list of questions that they know to ask anytime they're evaluating a deal. Actually, Chris, it would be great. I don't know if we have the ability to upload the document here or link to it, but we have a good 3-page document that talks through what are the primary questions or that a client should ask, or how can they successfully navigate the DST market when they're talking to a broker. We also do a pretty heavy macroeconomic dive with the client, and we talk through different asset classes and how the economic environment interacts with those asset classes. And when the client is in the middle of an exchange or about to be in one, we're actually going to really clearly define our buy box, what it is that we're looking for and why. So that way, when the client receives the particular investment opportunity, they know exactly what questions to ask about the structure, about the analysis, about the specific real estate and how it interacts with the economic environment. And even if they don't ask, we're going to provide a cheat sheet summary of everything that we've identified in the deal as a potential risk. So as you mentioned, a cash trap or cash sweep provision that would occur potentially if your client was buying sole ownership net lease and obtains traditional financing, or if they were to go into a DST. Oftentimes, a commercial lender will put a provision in there that says, hey, if the tenant vacates the property early, so let's say it was, I don't know, Walgreens, right? That's come up in the news where they're shutting down locations. Your client owns a Walgreens on a 10-year triple net lease, and the loan provision will say, if Walgreens leaves before the end of 10 years, even though they're corporately guaranteeing and paying for the property taxes and the insurance, the maintenance, and the rent, right, and structural repairs, if they go, the lender's going to sweep all of the cash or all of that rent and hold it aside until the tenant is replaced. That's normal, right? That's going to be one of those things that we would expose to the client if that were a provision in the terms of the debt. We'd also, I'd say, Chris and I have a bias towards, if we're recommending a product like that's net lease with loan, we're typically looking at products that are really, really well diversified, where we're not relying on any one tenant, geography, lease term, et cetera. So we're not running into that issue. Fortunately, we haven't had any of our clients run into that problem of having a cash sweep because, again, we're setting up the defenses in advance. I can't remember your second question, but maybe Chris can tell.
I'll just comment too, though, like, that is unfortunate that the client was in that situation, and really the heart of our due diligence and why we re-underwrite these programs, and the perspective that we bring in saying, hey, 93% of the deals in the market that these sponsors are trying to market to our clients are deals that we don't think are investable. So we're really saying no to 97% of the deals that are in the market at any point in time. And while there are deals that have those cash sweep provisions, there's other sponsors who have locked in financing that don't have the cash sweep provisions, where they are not exposed to the the lockbox if something were to change with the tenant or the property.
Okay, no, that's it's just an important question because it does come up, and we do see a lot of the front end, good news about the DST and the positivity of the investment, the upside. But the education is huge, and then the back end of when it happens, when we get through all this and somebody has questions, how does your organization handle the back end administratively when client A says, I got questions? Do I call Ryan? Do I call Chris? Who do I call? And are they available? Will they get back to me? I mean, that's a huge part because they got millions of dollars, and I'm just a $1 million, $2 million guy, but maybe that's important because these guys, it's their money.
Yeah.
Well, so we will. I want to make one comment. We will, when we are when we have these conversations with potential leads or referrals, I would say there's a decent amount of times where we have the conversation about the trust. We go through really the positives, but also extensively the negatives. And the client will come away and say, hey, you know what? This is not for me. And we'll say, great, that's like that. At least we got to that point. And that conversation takes 30 minutes to really figure out if the trust structure is something that is going to meet their needs at a high level. Then you have the real estate due diligence and an analysis and all of that plays into it. But the trust structure we can figure out at a high level, and we're okay saying, you know what, this is not the right thing for you. Okay. Ryan, if you want to comment on the
with the follow-up side. So we do not at JRW, we do not broadly advertise our business. We've been at this. We were one of the very first brokerages in the United States to offer. Back then it was TIC programs, okay, tenant in common, and we were doing the same level of due diligence. And then DSTs have really grown in popularity since 2012. So as a company, it's always been word of mouth, whether it was the existing tax clients that we started with in the early 2000s or their friends, family, et cetera, relationships with groups like Exchange Resources. We're not the mass marketers. You're not going to go online and search DSTs and have us in the top 20 search results where all the rest say they have the largest inventory of DSTs and they're casting a wide net. For us, we're focused on the particular demographic that we're focused on, and we don't want to have thousands of conversations a month with prospective investors. We want to talk to people who really have this as a particular need, who want curated guidance along the way. And what that enables us to do is build quality relationships with the client where we are the first call that they make after they've invested. So if it's the investor that's gone into one DST or they've gone into dozens, they're still going to call us. We will be the liaison. We do have a client services department that backs us up to take care of certain administrative things. If the client changes their bank account or moves or what have you, that facilitate the actual paperwork. But it's Chris and I that are interfacing with the clients on an ongoing basis, and we have absolute capacity to do that.
There's two handouts in the chat function. There's how to successfully navigate the DST market. So this is just a guide that we give to investors, and it's really the questions that we think they should be asking any advisor. And if the advisor cannot answer those questions, then they should not work with them. That's how we feel about that guide. Secondly, it's Ryan and mine's contact information, and you could give that to your client, and they could reach out and ask us any questions that they have.
No, that's great. Thank you guys for the information, because everything's great until it goes to shit, and then everybody wants somebody wants answers.
That's right. Yeah,
and we're held to the financial performance of that investment. So we also act as the client relations department for the life of the transaction. So similar to you, right? Your best relationships are folks who give you referrals, you're talking with on an ongoing basis. In the same way, that's us, right? We are the client services department, back office for the investor for the life of the investment, handling their needs. And we're also tied to the performance of that investment, right? Being licensed, having to be licensed to represent these deals. So that's why we do the due diligence. That's why we do the risk analysis on all these investments.
I'd like to share a story, just to kind of like encapsulate what I've heard you say. And it really is for a niche investor. And case by case is always going to be different. I like to give it within the context of a story so that we can see which part each one of us plays in it. The realtor has a very specific role. We as accommodators have a very specific role, and the other people that come to it, including the CPA and the legal advice that they get, because we all have to know our part and go on as a cast, right? I had the place that I retired from, I had a friend who was a title officer, and his mother owned an investment property that they'd owned for over 39 years. And she was already in her 90s, and she was spry until she wasn't. And it coincided with them losing a tenant, and then the new tenants that they had were just problematic. And so she took a turn for the worse in terms of her health. And so they got together and they said, well, yeah, we're just going to sell this property. And they had a realtor that was, oh yeah, I want to help you sell the property. But then when he found out that I was in exchanges, I said, yeah, we're just going to sell the property. I said, why would you do that when you can have a DST? I turned him on to JRW, and they were able to take that mother's exchange money and invest it in a DST for a short period. And it was perfect because her property was in an estate, was in a trust. And there was that one brother who, as soon as mom passes and he cashes in, he's going to go through all of that money. So it was a perfect storm, and in a positive way. And it's a case by case situation. And, it's good for the realtor to know about this opportunity, because think of it, not only is he getting the sale from he or she is getting the sale, but they're helping their customer defer their capital gains taxes at the same. So it's more of a binding transaction in terms of binding you to your client. You're going to get a loyal client out of that, because you're helping them on so many levels than just the one sale.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Marcus, for that. I do see that there was a question in the chat from Ian that I want to make sure we get to, and then happy to stick around if anybody else has others. Ian's question is there a commission or referral fee to KW for sending clients over? And the answer to that is no. So as Chris mentioned, we're licensed, but we're not licensed the same way you're licensed. We're securities licensed under FINRA and the SEC. So the Series 7 licensure is what allows us to advise on stocks, bonds, mutual funds, insurance products, and DSTs and real estate alternatives. We are not real estate brokers, okay? Under the SEC and FINRA, they limit the amount of compensation or gifting that we can give to anybody across the industry to $100 a year per person. That's not per referral, that's per person. So if you send us 100 clients, we're going to give you a dollar per person, right? You might get a couple bottles of wine. That's what we're limited to because of just a lot of malfeasance that went on back in the 90s, where it's kind of a pay to play type of arrangement. So unfortunately, no, we can't, and nor can we share in your commissions, okay, on anything that you might earn as a listing from your sale. We don't want compensation to be the motivation for anything. We want to just, again, create solutions for you guys where you can earn more business that way and create deeper relationships with your clients, and we can maybe help them as well. We get paid by the seller. Okay, so we get paid by the sponsor. Think of it like us acting as the agent representing both the buyer and the seller is paying us. Okay, so the clients don't come out of pocket at all to work with us.
Could I hang my limited securities license with you and get paid?
You have to talk to our principals about that, but potentially.
Okay.
And there is one thing I wanted to add as well, just like, JRW, and Michael can speak more about this because, I've been with the company since 2024, but Michael has been there for a long time. The core of our business is about relationships. It's about customer service. It's about making sure the client is happy at the end of the day. I can vouch for Chris and Ryan. The instant response I get to all the emails and the introductions I make to them, as far as clients looking to explore the DST option. And so like JRW Exchange Resources as well, we have built our business based on referrals. That's where the core of his business has always come from, and we take pride in that. And so I just want to mention that we work with partners that are aligned in that vision with us.
And I would add to that because, I'm finding that I'm having to kind of like re-explain, or not actually help us define our roles. You bring us your real estate clients. They're your real estate clients. When they come to us, they become our taxpayer clients. So it's kind of like we're an appendage to escrow. So we're kind of like in the mix, but for the purposes of them deferring their capital gains taxes. So there's a little distinction when they come to us.
And if I could just add really quickly, like Adrineh said, we have a longstanding relationship with JRW. I've done hundreds of transactions with them. I'll admit, I always breathed a sigh of relief when I saw JRW's name pop up, mainly because I knew I wasn't going to have to do any additional lifting. I knew that the identification process was going to go smooth. I knew I wasn't going to have to call them and remind them about a debt. They asked for exactly what we needed. We were both partners in making sure that everything closed quickly. JRW has my full confidence, and I think that's why we've worked together for so long. So yeah, they've got that long track record that we're always pleased to send people their way.
Thanks, Michael. My last comment is just to let you guys know, if you have any interest in getting on a mailing list for webinars, we typically host about 2 a month. That's something that you're welcome to attend, ask additional questions at. You can invite your clients to those. No pressure pitch or anything. It's a lot like what Chris presented today. And of course, we're happy to schedule one-on-one meetings at any point. So feel free to reach out to us.
And thank you for having us, Kim and Manny and everyone. It was great being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and your presentation.
Merci.
Merci.
Well, I'll be sending out the recording and also the contact information so that you all can get in touch in the future.
By
But
the
thank
way,
you very
everyone,
much.
the email went out for March 25th. You all should have, whoever gets my emails, you can all register now. It was just sent out about 30 minutes ago, so feel free to register. And then Kim, you want to forward it to them? They like to come on the 25th. They're more than welcome.
Okay.
David,
Very
I'll be there too. I registered
You,
for that.
Ryan and Chris.
Oh.
For Glar. And then can you give me a call, Adrineh شما تلفن, you have my number, right? Or
میتونین بنویسین توی chat.
yes,
I
I
get
can
back
do
to
that.
you. Okay.
100%. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, Kim.
Bye.
Thanks for putting this together.
No problem. Thank you.